Hello, welcome to Education Conversations with Educators. Today I have a special guest, Maggie Guillen. Thank you, Maggie, for coming on the show.
Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. So we're gonna get right into it. Our first segment is called Pass or Fail. So it's like a teacher. You only can pass one of the two things. So I'm gonna give you two topics or two people, and whatever one you say, that person or thing passes, the other one just fails. All right.
Okay.
So this is like a New Orleans twist because I know you spent some time in New Orleans. So Lil Wayne or Jay-Z, who passes?
Easy.
Jay-Z? All right. This is a New Orleans versus New York kind of a thing too. Bourbon Street or Times Square?
Bourbon Street.
Bourbon Street passes, okay. Mardi Gras or Labor Day Parade?
Mardi Gras, all the way.
I've
Yeah,
never been to Mardi Gras. That's one of
you would
my
love it.
bucket list things I want to do. Pizza or gumbo?
Wow, that's a hard one. My two favorite things.
Wow.
Pizza.
Pizza? Okay.
Yes, definitely.
Jazz or hip hop?
Hip hop.
All right, so I'm gonna pick one and ask you to explain why Jay-Z over Lil Wayne.
I love Jay-Z. I'm a native New Yorker. I have spent some time in the South, but like I said, I'm a native New Yorker, and his music always resonates with my experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've always been connected to Jay-Z. I love him.
Dang, that's my favorite.
He's
That's my favorite
amazing.
rapper. It's been that
Yeah.
way forever since I was a teenager. New York, yep. All right, so we're gonna get into the opening questions. The first question is, so why did you become a teacher? What got you into the field of education?
That's a great question. So I've wanted to be a teacher since I was in the 4th grade. So growing up, I came from a household where they primarily spoke Spanish. So going into elementary school, I knew very little English. And then I saw the positive influences and how my teachers changed my life. And I had this one teacher, her name was Miss Chemensky, and she was so hard on us. And she was amazing though. And at first, I would ask myself, like, why is she so hard? And I think she was explaining something, and I understood it. And I was like, wow, like, you're amazing. And I remember I asked her that same day, I remember like it was yesterday, I was like, what do you have to do to be a teacher? And then she's like, well, you have to take a test. And I took that test like my sophomore year of college.
Wow.
Which was an LASP, I'm assuming, which is the first test you take to become an educator. And then it took me from, okay, what kind of teacher do you want to be? Do you want to be an elementary school teacher, high school teacher? And I noticed in the elementary school that we were given social studies books, but never really went through any type of content. And I read the books on my own. And of course, at home, I learned from my mother and my grandmother. And I just fell in love with history. So I decided to become a history teacher until I got to college. And I took a course on exceptional children, And my professor told me that there was a shortage of bilingual teachers. And he told me that there was a shortage of bilingual teachers, of ESL teachers, and also of teachers with that background to teach students with special needs. So it was a little too late to change my major. So I graduated with a history degree, a minor in secondary teaching social studies. And I went back for my master's and I did it on special ed and an ESL education, bilingual special ed.
Nice. I feel like that's so perfect. I feel like that's the best thing about you. I feel like you can kind of relate to all three of those. Like those are like the most underserved groups in public schools across the country. Like you have the ESL kids, you have your kids with special needs, and you have your Black and brown students. Like those are the kids that the system has had such a hard time trying to meet their needs. So the more people who, research and learn and try to find ways to best support those kids, we need more in the system for sure.
Yeah.
You kind of touched on my next question. My next question was going to ask you your favorite public school teacher, but what did you say the teacher was? What was her name again?
I have a few.
You have a few? Can you mention one?
Well, my favorite has to be wow. Come on. And I'm gonna show her this.
You should.
She's my friend today. Like, So I have a few, but my ultimate favorite teacher, her name is Miss Lara, Miss Stacy Lara. She's still a teacher, and I'm happy that she's still my friend, and I'm still in touch with her. So because history and the humanities has always been my strength, math is my weakness. Okay. And when I was in high school, true story, when I was in high school, I did and I don't mind, my kids know I'm very honest with my experiences, you know. When I was in high school, I did very well on all the Regents exams except for the math Regents. So I struggled a lot with math, okay? And I remember I was a senior and I still hadn't passed the algebra Regents, and I needed this one Regents to graduate. And Miss Lara was my math teacher, and she was amazing. She was a young teacher. She was a fellow. I think it was like the first year the fellows came out, early 2000s. And I even had a little attitude with her. You know, she was young. I was like 16, 17. She was like 21, 22. And she tutored me and she helped me pass that Regents. And she's amazing. And I've been in touch with her ever since. And she's great. Like, she's still teaching. You know, we have mutual friends. You know, we know people within the same realm. And she's amazing. So she's got to be my favorite teacher because she helped me graduate from high school.
Nice. I mean, that's so great. I have such a similar story. Like, it was in middle school. I was like in 7th grade. So the way my middle school was set up in New York was we had like a 601, 602, 603, and 601 was like the top class. Everyone knew that was the class where the kids were the smartest, right? So I thought that I belonged in 601, but they put me in 602. But I had a black male math teacher named Mr. Antoine, because 601 was the only class allowed to take, I think wasn't the Regents, it was like one of the advanced math tests. So Mr. Antoine like saw something in me and my friend, and he used to stay after school and tutor us. And he got the principal to allow us, even though we were in 602, to still take the test from 601. Like that impact that he had on me, being a black male and seeing something in me and like going the extra mile to support me, made me want to do that for kids, and kind of made me want to get into the field of education as well. So the similar story.
And so the cutest thing happened like a few months ago. She sends me a picture of the card I got her. Like when I passed the test. Mind you, this is what, 2003? You know, like 17 years ago or something. And it was beautiful. And I was so happy she kept it, because I keep all the things my kids give me. And it's a lot of things, okay?
Exactly.
You know, I taught elementary school a few years ago, so it's a lot of stuff, and she's got to be my ultimate favorite teacher because of that. So yeah, I'm just so grateful for her. So shout out to Miss Lara.
Yes, please do. I feel like we need that as teachers. It's such a difficult position, like so many things are thrown at us, but when we have those moments where we see we having an impact on kids, and like a lasting impact, even to this day, you still have a relationship with her. Like those are the things that keep us going and keep us motivated to stay in the field.
Definitely. And just to add, like, I'm the same way with my students. Like, I give my all. And she taught me that, because she was like the only teacher to ever do that in all the years that I was in school. You know, she was the only teacher to, you know, give up her lunch for me. And I'm the same way with my kids today. Like, I call them, I do what I need to do to ensure that they're here and they're supported, and I advocate for them. And she did the same for me. So I totally appreciate.
That's great. That was great. So my next question is, as a teacher now, what has been your most memorable and proud moment as a teacher?
Oh, wow. So a few years ago, I taught at an amazing transfer high school. It's called Brooklyn Democracy Academy. And it's a school where our students were undercredited and overaged, 16 to 21-year-olds. And I had a student, and I'm going to use his name because I'm sure he'll be okay with that. His name was Andrew. And came into my social studies class. Struggled a lot with just language. You know, his first language was Dutch. He was from Suriname. Struggled with all that. And he came to my class, and he had all these history credits, but needed the global history Regents, which I see is keeping our kids from moving on to the next step, you know, the Regents exams. And he was about to age out. And, he came to my class and I was teaching them about, ancient Egypt or something. Came in a few days later with a tattoo, yes, with like, he's like, look, miss, this is the pharaoh you taught me about. And I was very impressed. Okay. And then time goes on, eventually passes the regents. We create a Dutch glossary for him.
Nice.
So that he has that for the regents and all. I work with his ESL teacher to do that. Amazing lady as well. And few days later, he comes to me. He's like, miss, he starts showing me these designs, He's like, for a t-shirt business and all these drawings. And I'm like, whoa, those are really good. Like inspired by these Egyptian pharaohs that I taught kids about. And true story, Jerome. Oh my God. So fast forward 2 or 3 years, I'm about to move to Georgia. So I live in Kew Gardens, and I'm catching the Q10 to catch the air train to Jamaica. I'm about to go to Georgia, right? This is 2013. I get off the bus and I see Andrew. And he's like, he picks me up.
Wow.
And he's like, hey, let me show you my store.
Whoa.
He walks me into his store right across from the bus stop, right on Jamaica Avenue. And he walks me into his store where now he has his t-shirt business.
Look at that.
Okay.
Look at that.
And I was just so happy. And, I was happy at the moment because I left New York and I was going to Georgia and I was going to go teach Montessori, and it was going to be totally different experience from teaching my older kids, now younger kids, from the north to the south. So and that kind of was like, Mags, you did your work. It's fine to go. Fast forward years later, Andrew still contacts me, showed me some prints, like, miss, what do you think about this print versus that print? Fast forward years later, so I moved back to New York from Georgia because I was finished with school there. I moved back to New York. Guess who I run into on the train? Andrew. He's telling me how he's got all these businesses now, has a home in Pennsylvania, travels to the city, all this and that. He's like, miss, I need you to help me with something. I want to go to college. What do I have to do next? And though he was accomplished, he had his homes and he had his businesses, and he was very creative and very successful, he still valued education. And that's always one thing I've always wanted to inspire in my kids, to always go the distance, go the next step. Don't let anything stop you. And that was the next conversation. And now we're like in 2018 or something. Miss, I want to go to college. What do I do next? Can you help me with that? And I told him, don't worry, just email me and we'll work on it, because I'm always going to be my kids' teacher. And that's what I've always told them. Wow. True story. Isn't that amazing?
That's really inspiring. As teachers, you don't know, like, you push and push, you don't know the impact you have on them, but it seems like you had like a lasting impact on Andrew's life, and it still to this day exists. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Amazing. So we're going to go into the next topic. This is kind of more heavier stuff. This segment I call Stay Woke. So I just read something this morning about how to this exact day, 60 years ago, Ruby Bridges was the first day of school when she entered school in New Orleans, and she was the first Black person to integrate into school. She was 6 years old, right? So that kind of made me think about, and I knew I was going to talk about this with you today. So just thinking about, like, she was a young Black girl, and thinking about Black girls and Black and brown students, and girls specifically, in the school system, and how oftentimes they, are mistreated, they're over-disciplined, they're not supported, and they're not really allowed to be their unique selves. So for you, being a woman of color who was once a young girl in school, what do you think we need to do more to protect and support Black girls and Black and brown girls in the school system?
I mean, I love your question, just because, not only am I Latina, but I'm Afro-Latina. And I'm I've got little sisters, I'm the eldest. So I think most importantly, we have to understand that there's a problem. We have to accept there's a problem in the school. And I feel like it's up to administration to be the leaders and to provide support for teachers when dealing with these situations. I feel like the thing with teaching and education I've learned is that you can learn your best by example. And providing those spaces within the school to provide that support to these young girls. It doesn't have to be where they have to go to the counselor. Only the counselor is trained in how to talk to these young girls and provide the space for these young girls. Also, one thing I've noticed, and I've worked in many different schools and different settings because I've moved a few times, and I've noticed that a lot of things are just like tolerated, or a lot of, I've heard conversations and I've heard people say things and they're just like, oh, well, that's how she is. And that's, no. Like the minute you walk in the classroom, the minute you walk in the school, you've got to set those things aside and you've got to be there for these kids. And the way I am with you now is I try to be this way because this is who I am as a person. But the minute I walk into a school, I'm a lot more aware and cognizant of the kind of example that I have to be for these kids. Like I just told you about Miss Lara. How did I know she was 21, a teaching fellow? Like these kids know. They know. She never told me this, you know, but our kids know us and they're smarter than we think. So we've got to support them, because the thing also is that if we're not there to support them, then who's going to support them? Like who's going to support these young girls and these young boys? So yeah, we've got to just create that space within the school to provide that support, and ongoing conversations have to happen so that people are aware and they know that what they say and their actions matter. You know, that's my personal opinion.
I like that. And I also think it's really important to have like people like you, people like myself, just people of color, people who come from similar backgrounds as our Black and brown students, specifically girls, so that they can relate to us and they can see themselves in us and they can know that there's more to aspire to. A lot of times, honestly, in the school systems, you don't see a lot of people of color for many reasons, but oftentimes we don't see them in high positions. We see them often, you know, either in the school cafeteria or, you know, school supports, but they're not really in the teaching, the staff developing, the administrative positions. And when we have people of color in those positions, kids can aspire to achieve more, right? They can aspire to know that they can go to the highest level in their field, and they can be themselves. And I think it's so important for people of color, when you get into the field of teaching, that you can still be your true self, so kids know that they don't have to always like change the way they talk, change the way they walk, change the way they act just to fit in, because that's a lot to carry as a Black girl or as a Black, you know, boy or Black and brown students, to have to feel like they can have to be one person outside all the time, and then when they come in, they have to kind of change who they are and fit into the system, and also try to learn. It's like that's a big load to carry as a student. If we can create a system where Black girls can be themselves, talk how they talk, you know, be themselves, but still be respected and still be, you know, valued as for what they bring to the table, I feel like that will create a better learning environment overall for Black and brown students.
I totally agree with you, and that's why I mean, I went to LIU for my master's in special ed, and that's one of the things that that's what I got from it. You know, be yourself.
Yeah.
You know, dress how you like to dress. You know, you don't have to put on a persona as long as it's appropriate, right?
Yes.
You know, be yourself. That's how you're going to be relatable to these kids. And throughout all these years, it's really worked for me. You know, it's really worked for me, and I've had a great 12 years.
Yeah.
You know,
and for me, specifically with Black girls, I feel like I really hope like now is the moment to show that we really need to support them even more, Black and brown girls, because if you think about like even with the fight that we're having now with like social injustice, there's so many Black and brown women who are like on the front lines fighting for equality and pushing, so educated, so, you know, articulate, so brave and courageous, like really fighting for equal rights for all people, but specifically to prevent you know, Black men from getting killed or Black women from getting killed on the streets by police or whoever, you know. So I feel like while they're kids and while they're young, we need to nurture them and protect them and create environments where they can be our future leaders. Because I think Black women, especially, and Black and Latino women are our future leaders. So I think it starts in the school system. It starts in the schools.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So next segment is called diversity and equity in school. So you being a Latino woman, you being a special education teacher, someone who can teach ESL, those, like I said before, those are the groups that struggle in schools or aren't given them the most support in schools, but specifically, especially now during the pandemic and remote learning, they're struggling even more than ever, right?
Yeah.
So what has worked for you to try to support and help those students as a special ed teacher?
You just have to give your all. You have to make yourself available. You have to make yourself there. I feel like sometimes people use the excuse of, oh no, I can't do this, or I don't know how to work with these kids. I've heard that. I'm not trained in special ed. And I feel like, I mean, I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm also an adult educator.
Okay.
And I've worked with the Office of Adult and Continuing Education for a long time.
All right.
I've taught their ESL courses in Manhattan and in Queens. My oldest student was born in 1929.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And, you know, I love her. She's a painter. She made a painting for me. I've hung in my house and everything. And I'm mentioning this because all students want is recognition and to be loved. Doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter their experience, doesn't matter anything. I had another student who was an engineer in his country, and he came to this country because, you know, he was retired, and he was my Google. Like, he would provide me all this information, and he just knew everything, and he was so bright, and all he wanted was my recognition as a teacher and my knowledge because I was his ESL teacher. So with that said, I feel like if we give kids our time and just hear them out and hear what they need, we can support them in many, many different ways. And it doesn't matter if they're ESL, doesn't matter if they have a special need, it doesn't matter. Sometimes kids just need an ear. They just need to talk. So there's a block, a mental block. We all have mental blocks, right? All they need probably is if someone to talk to. Maybe mom and dad are working long hours and they're not home and they have to be strong for their siblings, right? So what's really worked for me, honestly, is just making myself available to them. You know, kids text me. I don't mind saying that. When I worked at the transfer high school, we had a very open, because with working with older kids, you just got to try different methods. So kids text me when they need to. And I don't mind personally. They email me, they text me. A boundary has never been crossed. Okay, if you talk to the kid, they understand, you care about them, it won't be crossed, you know? And just really making yourself available and listening helps, you know? Because there's so many resources online these days. There's so many videos, there's so many ways to teach. Zoom, you can share your screen with me, I can share my screen with you. Providing a model, something as simple as a model, 5 minutes after class can really help. Just that individualized attention. And not everyone's going to need it. Not everyone's going to come to you for it. So there's always going to be maybe 10% of the kids will. And they might really need it. And that might really help them go to the next level. And it goes back to what you're saying, how we're building leaders. We're building strong leaders. So you can make that difference in that person's life. And that's what Miss Lara taught me. You know, that's what she taught me when I was in high school. Like, just sitting with me. She didn't even sit with me for months. She only sat with me maybe 5 times, maybe. You know, and I passed that Regents, and I attributed it to her and her, you know, dedication. You know, something simple like that can really change someone's life and inspire them to give more of themselves. And that's what I've done as a teacher, or I've wanted to do. You know, and if something's not working, then change it. Just be open to change and be open to just being there, actually being there for the kids and listen.
That's so true. Being flexible is so important, right? Because every kid has different needs, and when you're able to identify what works best for them, being flexible to meet them where they are and support them and get them where you want them to go. But another great thing you said is care, right? Kids really just want to know that someone cares about them. Especially, I notice kids who struggle, they've seen so many teachers give up on them or complain and not really give their best effort. So when they find teachers and people who really, really care and really willing to get through, regardless if they give you attitude, back talk, whether they whatever they do as a kid, because they're still learning. If you can be a teacher who just keeps coming back and cares for them, the kids will eventually let down their guard, and then you have them, and then they'll be able to listen to you, and you can work together to support that kid and meet their needs. I've seen so many kids who had behavior challenges or didn't come to school, but when they had a teacher, at least even if it's just one person in the building that really truly cared for them, that they can go to and can listen, like you said, really listens without trying to judge or without trying to always give them the answer. Just listen to them and understand them. I feel like that keeps kids motivated, and I've seen it change the trajectory of many students over the years. So I think those are great points that you made.
Thank you. And just giving them time, like giving them time to do the work, giving them time to get through it. I'm not saying everyone's going to need these accommodations, but it's like we don't know what our kids are going through, and I feel like education is important, but self-care is even more important, because how are you supposed to do well in a subject if you're not well yourself? And I think that sometimes we forget that as teachers, we have all these things we have to get through when it comes to the curriculum and all that. But especially now, it's very easy for a kid to shut down. And there's so many loopholes with the grading policies and expectations where a kid can literally say, hey, it says this. Like, I don't need to really go to your class, Miss Maggie. Like, and this is where it's like, yeah, you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean. Like sometimes the only way to get that kid, the kid can find, especially at a certain age, when kids are in middle school and above, they can find a way to work the system. They can work the system. So they're really only going to show up for the teachers that they know really care and really listen to them and really get it. And those are the kids that show up regardless. But if you're a kid who wants to, especially now during remote learning times, if you want to game the system, if you want to say, well, my Wi-Fi is not working today, sorry, see you later, or this assignment says I can turn it in whenever, so I'm going to do it whenever, then you can get away with that. But unless we, like you said, are building relationships with kids, checking in with them to make sure that they are taking care of themselves and doing self-care activities with them, then they're not going to be motivated to really want to come in and be them true selves and take risk and grow and learn during these times, especially. And like you said, another thing you said is so many people are going through so many things now with the economy being where it's at, with COVID being where it's at, and so many families affected by the pandemic or even the social injustice. And if we don't check in, if we don't really value social emotional learning just as much as we value academics, whether it's the tests and assessments and this, then we're going to lose a lot of kids, because a lot of kids I know I heard someone say this before, you can't really teach them if you don't really reach them. You have to reach them where they are and support them and through social emotional.
Definitely.
In order to get them to do the academics at all.
Yeah, and they have to be able to connect with you. Like when I started teaching, I was a little harder, and there was this guy, and he was like retired teacher, would come in like an ATR almost, and he was like, he would refer the kids to mis muchachitos, which is like my young kids in Spanish, all the kids, it didn't matter who. Come here, mi muchachito, come here, muchachita. And I would and I would see the way the kids would react to that. That's when I taught at that transfer high school. These kids were 20, 21 years old, jobs, responsibilities, children, like they had gone through it, and they loved him so much, so I learned that it's better to just really take it to the personal level. So when I see a kid that's really struggling, I'm like, come here, come talk to Titi Maggie. Titi Maggie is Auntie Maggie. Come here, come talk to Titi Maggie. And and the kids, I have really good relationships with my students, and it's because you just gotta take it to that level. And that's why I allow my students to call me Miss Maggie and not Miss Guillen. When I taught at aviation, they call me Miss Guillen because that was the standard, right? Everyone addressed by last name. But when I work in a school where I have the option
Yeah.
of being called Miss Maggie, it's usually Miss Maggie, you know. At the Montessori school, it was Miss Maggie. At Harbor School, it was Miss Maggie. At the Transfer High School, it was Miss Maggie, you know, and I love working at schools like that because they give me the opportunity to kind of like make that decision because they respect the madness.
Yes.
You know, they respect that way that I am with my kids, and I appreciate that. So that's why my kids call me Miss Maggie.
I love it. I love it. I think something so small like that can make a huge difference. And I think it breaks down that barrier between I'm the teacher, you're the student, stay in that role. It's like, okay, I am an adult, I have my degrees, and I am the professional, but we're in this together. We're a team, and I've been in your shoes before, so I can support you and know that I know some of your experiences and I can kind of talk to those. But if a student only sees you as this professional who has to be this certain way and this dictator kind of a personality that some teachers like hold on to, then you lose them. You can't even reach them. They'll build a wall and never really let you in because they don't feel like you really get it.
Definitely.
Yeah. So this is a game. We're going to go back to another game. This game is called Start, Bench, and Cut. So it's like a basketball team, right? Something that you would start is like the best player in the team. They're in the starting lineup, right? Someone who you would bench is someone who is good enough to make the team, but they're not a starter. They're going to be on the bench. And something you would cut is someone who wasn't good enough to make the team. They can't make the team this year, maybe next time. All right. So it's start, bench, and cut. So the three things I want you to think about are, which one would you start, bench, and cut? Teaching Saturday school all school year, teaching summer school, or teaching night school all school year? Which one would you start? Good. Which one would you bench? Or which one would you cut?
I've taught all.
So you got a perfect person to ask.
Let's see. I would start teaching, I would say summer school.
Okay.
I like teaching summer school.
Yeah. What about it? What about it makes you like it?
I think because every time I've taught summer school, it was more like either the ESL class or like a Regents prep class. And I'm like really like, I really love global history. I've usually taught like those Regents prep classes in the summer. I like teaching summer school for some reason. I like.
Okay.
So I would start with the summer school.
Which one would you bench and which one would you cut?
I would bench. I think I would. I would bench. I just had it. Sorry. I would bench night school.
Night school. Okay.
I would bench night school. Just because as I'm getting older, I go to bed a little early. So in the past, when I've taught night school, I'm usually home by like 9, and I have like no life after that because I'm straight to bed. I would probably cut Saturday school because I have like a problem with like lateness.
Yeah.
Just a little, and and you know, I loved teaching at aviation. I would teach their Saturday ELA program, and they were so accommodating because I'd be like, because you know they knew she's awesome, like it's fine, but it wasn't okay. And my kids were so good, like they wait for me by the door and stuff. But something about Saturdays, just because as you know, Fridays are so tiring for a teacher. Like they're like, usually I'm just dead by Friday. So if I teach Saturday and I've got to wake up so early, it's like I'm still tired.
Yeah. You want that day to sleep,
I would bench that.
Okay, cool. And last segment before I let you go, this one's called Choose Your Teachers Wisely. And you kind of gave a shout out to 2 teachers, but this is a chance to give a shout out to, it could be a teacher, a person, a video, a podcast, something that has educated you and inspired you to be a better person.
Just one person?
Yeah, just one. What would you give a shout out to?
So I actually would love to give a shout out to someone that we both know. Janice.
Oh wow, Janice.
Yeah, so so as you know, I came in the middle of the school year. And I came in after I moved back from Mississippi. And you guys don't know this, but that was a hard time in my life because I had just moved back and I was there, and then I was here after some things fell through there, and like I co-taught with Janice, Janice Manning.
Janice Manning, shout out to Janice Manning. She's also our
And
character leader
just
at school.
seeing her and just her positive energy, and just she was always so nice, and she was just so positive, and other people were as well, but like you could just feel just her goodness as a person.
Yeah.
And I felt like I had all that from my family and all, but I felt like going to work and just working with her and just being in that spirit. And she was always so supportive, and she's, you know, I text her and she was always there, even during COVID, like, and the way she just gives herself to people and the students is like impressive and amazing. And I just met her this year. I'm sure you know more.
I know for years, but that everything you said is
you
true.
know, and I have to shout her out because, like I said, you know, moving from Mississippi and then coming and then not being with you guys as long because of this remote, and then having those supports remotely, and that time just being in the classroom with her, teaching with her, just seeing the way she is, and just it just really warmed my heart, and it just made my day every day I taught with her. Right. So I do want to shout her out.
Shout out to Janice Manning. Thank you. Maggie, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it so much. You shared so much great insight and experience, and just want to say thank you for all you do for students and just being the person you are. So thank you so much. All right.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, it was good. It was good. All right. Thank you for watching. Stay blessed, and remember, education over everything. See ya.
Bye.